all the speakers, the ones in the first and the second session. So if you just want to stand here in front, they want to make a picture of all of us. And then we'll start. Okay. Yes, you have to sit there. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Virginia Dignam. I will be co-hosting this session with my colleague Gina Matthews there. We both are the chairs of the Technology Policy Council of ACM. And today we are here to discuss how to move beyond technical safety. And looking at aspects of multidisciplinarity, governance, and real-world impact. Across global AI discussion, safety is too often being framed in technical terms. Model alignment, red teaming, benchmark performance, frontier containment, and so on. These tools matter, and they really are further development is crucial. But they don't address the core question, or at least one of the core questions. What determines whether AI systems produce human and societal value or harm in real deployment contexts? That's what we are going to discuss in this session. AI systems, like we all know, do not operate in isolation. Their impact is shaped by deployment context, by governance capacity, by incentive structures, and by the lived reality of the communities that use and are impacted by these systems. As such, AI systems do not fail simply because of flaws in the model architecture or in the data or in the alignment techniques. They fail or they produce harm because they are embedded in institutional, economic, and political systems. So we will have an open discussion with the panelists. It will be 2 rounds of panelists. And I would like to start by inviting Dr. Lourinho Chaman, who is the chairman of the board of the National Institute of Information and Communication Technology in Mozambique, where he is at this moment leading the national strategy on AI for Mozambique. Please, yes.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking the invitation to join this panel and also to congratulate the government of India on hosting this AI Impact Summit. Going directly to the topic, part of this panel, as part of our exercise of crafting the national AI strategy, we looked at this topic of safety. And for us, safety, working as for the policy subject and from the policy formulation point of view, for us, safety, we look at as the protection of people, not only systems. So we look AI governance must prioritize human, social, and institutional impact, going beyond technical metrics such as robustness, accuracy, or algorithm alignment. We also look at from the multidisciplinary governance grounded in real-world context of use of AI. For us, effective AI policies require input from law, social sciences, education, labor, ethics, and affected communities. So the inclusion of the people and how they will feel safe in using these technologies. We look also from the continuous human oversight and institutional accountability. People must know what's in the black box, how they're designed, if the factors that are affecting their lives, the decision made by the algorithm, have been have taken into consideration their feelings in the design phase. We also look for the protection of children, young people and women. From the studies that we conduct, the women and the children and youth are the first victims of the bad application of the AI. We also look for the ethical and social assessment. Mozambique is one of the pilot countries adopting the UNESCO principles of ethics in adopting AI, and we are looking also for the dimension defined by UNESCO in this perspective. Sharing what we are doing in the country now, we in Mozambique we are drafting, as I mentioned, our national AI strategy with the support of UNESCO, and thank Professor Virginia, who is the leading expert in our team, but with contribution of other experts from UNESCO. We are also crafting our data policy and its implementation strategy, because we believe that data is a fundamental element for AI system. We are reviewing our national cybersecurity strategy, because data that we're collecting now is that there are already cybersecurity-related problems by the use of wrong use of AI model. We just adopted in Mozambique the regulation for the construction and operation of data centers, and also the regulation for cloud computing, because we believe that infrastructure is a fundamental and key element for sovereignty of our country in terms of when it comes to safety, but from the policy point of view for the democratic system and all other dimensions. But we also look at it from the digital government point of view. So we're reviewing also our interoperability framework that's related to data to make sure that in adopting AI in the public administration, we address our main objective of improve efficiency and efficacy in delivering public services. For us, these are the elements that will be contained in the overall digital transformation strategy that, if everything goes as planned, will be approved by our government during this year. And we are learning a lot in this summit and gathering important elements that will help us to uplift and improve our work in crafting this element. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaman. I understand that you have to move to another session, so feel free to leave whenever you need to go. We understand the complexities of program. Now I would like to ask Dame Wendy Hall, Regis Professor of Computer Science, Associate Vice President and Director of the Web Science Institute at the University of Southampton, and also a former member of the United Nations High-Level Expert Advisory Body, to give us some provocative statements.
They will be.
Good, provoke us.
I'm fed up with towing the party line. So I will, I have to first apologise because I have to leave at 11. I'm supposed to be on 3 panels at the moment, and I also have a lunch date at midday in town. So that's my morning. I want to say, I think 3 things. One is, what's really, 4. If you know Monty Python, nobody expected the Spanish Inquisition. Anyway, so first of all, it's been wonderful to be in India. I love India, and I have a love-hate relationship with this summit. It's too big, there's too much going on, and not enough actual real debate about the core. There's going to be some sort of platitude statement come out today, yeah, and I've just come back, as Virginia has, from the UN. Our advisory board and the new scientific panel get together. They've got a panel going on at the moment. The dialogue that's starting in the AI for Good conference in Geneva in July, we hope will be a real dialogue. Don't know what form it's going to take yet, but we have to knock the world leaders' heads together. Now, I'm now going to say something which has also really struck me. Thank you. Is that working? Yes? At this conference. I love, in India, AI means all-inclusive. But 50% of the population weren't included yesterday, the women. Yeah. Right? There are no women, the CEOs of every company. There was one lady CEO from Accenture, I think. There were a couple of ladies on the panels at the end. It was all men. The alpha males of this world, men, right? the world leaders that spoke, the CEOs that spoke. This world is dominated by men. And my mantra has always been, in terms of the lack of women and some other diversity points as well, but mainly women, is if it's not diverse, it's not ethical. People don't really understand what that means. That means is if you haven't got a diversity of people discussing a problem, how are you going to actually sort out the biases? If you haven't got women at the top level making these decisions, trying to set up the guidelines. I mean, your comment was, yeah, we want to make sure for the safety of women and children. Well, let's include the women and children in the discussions. I mean, my third point is that we are watching, I mean, I'm very into watching these experiments. I did it all through the web, and we need to learn how to monitor what's going on so that we can say what is the right direction to go in the future. It means collecting data and evidence and doing longitudinal studies, and it takes time. But take, for example, what Australia is doing with social media. We've heard at this conference several other for teenagers, I mean, didn't Macron, who was there yesterday? Macron said under 15 in France. Our Prime Minister, who constantly changes his mind, so I don't suppose it'll happen, but he's talked, sorry, that's a joke for any Brits in the audience, but there aren't many. He's saying 16 in the UK, some other Spain saying 16. There will be unintended consequences of that. Making a ban like that without thinking about the nuances of, well, what happens if, well, first of all, the kids are ingenious enough to get around it. And then they're back on the dark side of things again, even worse than before, because they're doing it in secret. What happens when they start to use social media? How do we train them to do it properly? My worry about a ban like that, I mean, it's very brave of Australia to do it first, and we can watch, and they're saying 6 months' time they'll have some evidence of how many under 16s are still on social media, but the behavioural issues take much, much longer to explore than that. And we have to get over this fact that whilst the technology is going on a pace because the alpha males are driving it without any, just worrying about technical safety maybe, we can't say, well, it's all going too fast. We can't do any, we have to study this stuff. And I think this is what I want the ACM to do. I talked at my keynote talk, this is my last point, by the way, my keynote talk on whatever day it was, Wednesday, on the main stage, I talked about two things happening in the UK, actually one is our National Physical Laboratory, which is the sort of equivalent of NIST in America, has just launched, with government backing, a centre for AI measurement. And the AI Security Institute in the UK and the other security institutes that are growing up around the world, that network is now being called, largely driven by the US, because Trump doesn't want to call it anything to do with safety. But I can't believe I just said that. Anyway, but then he was the man that drank bleach in COVID. They're calling their network the Network for AI Measurement. And I think this is a breakthrough. I think this is, I mean, I love AI for science, but we need to think about the science of AI. And I think, and it's a socio-technical, and I'm started to call these things social machines, as we did on the web. That came from Tim Berners-Lee, the idea of technology and society coming together to create artifact systems that wouldn't have existed if they hadn't come together. And the technology doesn't understand society at the moment, and most of society doesn't understand this technology. But together, those two systems will create socio-technical systems or social machines. And I want to build a science of studying social machines. And it will be called AI measurement or AI metrology. I love that word. I've learnt to say it. Yes, of course it's Greek. Everything's Greek to us, Yanis. I love the yogurt. Don't you love Greek yogurt? Oh. So, sorry, I'm finishing there, really. AI metrology, and we're going to launch I'm chair of the ACM Publications Committee, or co-chair. He's president. We're going to launch a journal, first journal in this area, and and it'll be socio-technical, pulling together work and the data, sharing the data that people are collecting to go with it. That's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Very important point, and I think you can leave it there. Again, we fully understand when you have to leave, you just leave. We understand that. So for the rest of us in the panel, we start the day or the session talking about AI safety. It needs to be more than just the technical robustness. I love your idea of the social machines of this AI metrology. Yes, it is. It does. Yeah, yeah. With me only sometimes, probably, but I did my best now. Yeah, in metrology. Yeah. Anyway, I would like to bring you into the discussion. How can we? Both Dr. Sheman and Wendy gave us examples of issues that we need really to include in going beyond this idea of technical robustness. Even if systems perform exactly as they have been designed and safely designed, they will still probably be causing harm, which is not probably just a technical failure, but also a failure of inclusion, a failure of imagination. So I would like to get your opinions from where you think that we can change where can we start changing the discourse of a pure technical approach to a broader inclusive, societal, institutional approach to the discussion on AI safety, on AI measurement, and so on. And I would like to start this question, which is for all of you, starting with Professor Yanis Ioannidis, who is the current president of ACM, and also a professor at the University of Athens.
Thank you very much for having me in this panel. I'm a technical person, very sociable, but technical. That's my expertise. So I want to separate the issue of safety of AI and talk about safety of AI use. And for me, in my technical mind, there is the AI technology, which is the algorithms, which are the models, and so on, from the use of this technology, the use of the software that is on AI. And we are using this software both in the beginning with the input that we give it, and at the output when we create what is called, I have an artificial intelligence, I have an agent, and so on, to do this or that or the other. The technology there's no social issue in the safety of the technology itself. It's like the car, whether it's working or not. There is no issue of safety, and innovation in that regard has to be let free, like the human mind and all the innovators, to progress on that. And robustness and not having bugs or not bugs are an issue there, but it's a day in the park for us software engineers and computing scientists. The use is the important thing, and sometimes the key thing that people are talking about is the end result, the model. We put it in the judge's hands, we put it in the doctor's hands, we put it in the youth's hands in terms of social media and so on. This we have to work on, measure, regulate potentially, and in any case, all sciences, like it was said before, especially the humanities, philosophers, ethicists, legal people, cognitive scientists, and so on, have to come together to address this. But there is also the input side, which is, again, humans doing it. Humans are determining the first parameters where the systems are starting to be trained. the data that we feed it, it's again humans that are choosing it. And as much as we have to regulate or measure or think, the end result, the model, the humanoid or non-humanoid robot that is telling us do thing or that or the agent, and the same level of importance is that we have to think about what to do with what comes in. And humans are using it, different humans are feeding it. And I think the safety must start from there. We should not ignore the input size. We should not let it run for free. Even at that level, we have to have the different sciences, the different technologies, civic society to be represented there. And having an AI with whatever data we happen to have, or whatever data generates billion-dollar industries, these are the data that we'll use, it's wrong. I mean, there is a right and wrong here, and we have to be on the right side of that. So as a quick wrap-up, so for others to express their opinion, technology should be running free, but both input and output, end result, should be in the hands of all of us and not the hands of the few.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just turning now to, sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Dr. Shimano. Thank you. See you soon. Bye. Okay. Okay, let's continue the discussion. Sarah Hooker, you are the co-founder and president, I believe, of Adaption Labs, a very young company, I believe. You have been before with Cohere and with other developing organizations. What do you think about this balance or tension between the technical robustness, the technical safety measures, and the need for understanding more the environment, the context, the social context in which systems are built? And how can we, technologists, those that develop, like yourself, be developing systems while they are aware of this type of tension and also the insertion of the systems in a very concrete, real-world domains?
Hi, so it's lovely to be here. I feel like we got off to a bombastic start to the panel, so that's fun. I feel like more and more people have trickled in as we've gotten more spirited. So Virginia's right. My whole career has been building large systems. I was at DeepMind. I led the research arm at Cohere and now Adaption. And typically it's been, how do you build extremely large systems at the frontier of what's possible? I think it's interesting. I'll share a few things. So one, I think what Wendy was getting to is that one of the biggest signals of whether you actually care about safety is what the forums of prestige and power look like. I think that's mainly her comment. She's saying, you know, we are at the pinnacle of where we all gather to discuss these things, and the way resources have actually been allocated doesn't show that people are serious, which I think is fair. I think you have to look to the surrounding environment to understand if people are serious or not about safety, or whether it's just a panel title, candidly. And maybe today it's just a panel title. I think in general, my philosophy about these forums is that you have to look 6 months out to actually get a signal of what has happened. That doesn't mean that they're not critical. I frankly don't know if the expectation should be anymore that we have universal rules for AI. It's not clear to me that that should be the outcome of these forums. So I think decidedly if you're going in with that expectation, you're going to be very disappointed, because I don't think that's going to happen at this forum or at the next one. But I do think it's worth asking, well, where are we going as a conversation about safety and the precision of it? Because for me, that's the most interesting part. Time is very valuable. It's our most precious resource. And so for me, the more precise the conversation, the better. I do think if I look at the overarching arc from Bletchley to now, we've had now 4 summits, we'll have the 5th. It's worth asking, has it become more precise? Candidly, and thank goodness, yes. I still remember Bletchley, where it was all about existential risk, and 6 months from now, and there were protests and hunger strikes from people who thought machines were taking over. but no precision to the conversation, no accountability for where these timelines were coming from. And then I look to now, and now we have a very messy conversation about safety. Certainly everyone has a different view. It's still a blanket term, but at least it's more accountable to what is the real world impact of these conversations and the technology that we build. Because when I started my career as a computer scientist, we were just in research conferences. I mean, I think the fact that ACM is so well represented on this panel speaks to the origins of, like, you know, very narrow group of people who work in a very academic community, and now our technology is used everywhere. So it's a much more important conversation to have. So one, I think we have gotten more precise, but it's still very murky what people mean. Here's the other thing I'll say. I think there's often desire in these conversations about where technical meets the ecosystem to say, oh, well, safety has to be everything to everyone. And frankly, that's not a precise conversation either. Because the truth is, there are trade-offs. When you build systems, there are trade-offs. And too often when these conversations enter this arena, there's a misconception about the sheer difficulty of how do you actually impose constraints on these systems. So the other thing I'll say is, the biggest thing that has to come out is an understanding of what you give up, because you give up something. The big things for me are, you know, I work a lot on language. My big ask is just report what languages model providers cover. Report essentially like what they say that the safety parameters are not, and report what they don't cover or they haven't tested for. This sounds like a simple ask, but I think this is actually quite precise. And what it establishes is, what have we given up? What are you confident about? What have we given up? There's many versions of this, but too often, and this is my ask, in conversations like this, we end up just circling around and saying, we want safety, we need perspectives of everyone in the model. And the truth is, that's also a naive statement, because it is almost certainly the fact that there will be some trade-off. Someone will not be represented, someone will be represented. And actually, what I think these forums are very useful for, having us all in the same conference, is about galvanizing ecosystems where you can make your own constraints and trade-offs, but also having a discussion about, you know, for the models that are being shipped that serve billions of people, we have these static monolithic models that are served the same way. What are the trade-offs that they have made, you know? And that's, you know, as someone who's built these models, there are almost certainly trade-offs in play. So we need to understand the state of the world as well as where we want to go. And it's okay if there are clearly, you know, things left out. It's more that they have to be stated out loud. That's my wish list, yeah. So maybe I'll leave it there, and I'll pass it on. I think you're next. Go for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. And indeed, next one, Jibu Elias, you are a researcher, but you are also an activist who examines how technology and institutions reshape knowledge, labor, and legitimacy. So help us making sense of what it means, safety, AI safety for society. That seems to be what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I was more interested in the real-world consequences of the panel title, but wonderful conversations by Sarah and Wendy and all here. So when I look back how technology has shaped my understanding of the world, I feel like an idiot. Because I grew up in a time, you know, watching this animated shows like Jetsons and all these futuristic shows, believing that the more advanced the technology gets, the better it gets, the better our world will be. You know, I grew up as this idealist kid who thought, oh, you know, when AI comes, there will be, you know, inequality. You know, that's what I'm saying. I was a naive kid back then. And nowadays, when I look at these things, I mean, there have been phenomenal work done by computer scientists, like, you know, people present here in panel, Sarah and everyone, right, on technical aspects of things. But more and more, we are seeing AI now becoming more political. It's becoming a larger, you know, socio-political construct in general. And what concerns me more is its exploitative and extractive nature. I think Sarah mentioned about the Bletchley, and where, you know, the talk was all about you know, existential risk. But now I think we are all at a point where we are all agreeing that the accumulated risk have become more worrying at the same time. I've been tracking people who've been using tools, you know, people who've been impacted by, and those who were excluded from the benefit of this kind of technology, right? If you go around states like Telangana, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, there are big group of tribal population. Their language is not represented in Gemini or anything, right? And I know everybody wants to impose Hindi on all of us, but sorry, I still, Hindi is not the national language of India. But what about them? How do they get access? So more and more, what I'm seeing is the divide between the socio-economic divide becoming more wider, especially in countries like India. And it's fascinating that we've been celebrating the data centers that we've been building. I had first-hand experience of a data center that's very much celebrated in Telangana, in a place called Mekaguda. I don't want to mention the company associated with it, but how it was built, how the people were manipulated, how the groundwater being extracted, right? In a place where there is a water scarcity, and when I asked the company, hey, this happened, I have a close association with that organization, and they said we interacted with the community leaders. So what I did, I reached out to the Sarpanch. He has no idea what they mean. So essentially, there's a lot of, in India, we know what that means, reaching out community leaders, bribing the politicians. But that's the larger things I'm worried about. And the people who are using this technology, now some people are talking about terms like AI psychosis. I don't know how valid those terms are, but it's fascinating to see that me and my executive director of Mozilla Foundation has been chatting about how elderly people are using these models. It's very fascinating, and it's worrying at the same time. We all often put our attention on younger folks, but it's funny at the same time, but still. So my larger question is why, the going forward, like yesterday the gentleman from US was telling that, everyone should use the US AI stack. I think, people in Denmark will be a good idea, how US treats its strategic partners. Yeah. Yeah, so my larger question is, where are we headed, right? Are we still gonna have this extractive nature, the data annotation workers who building these models, right? So I will stop here, and looking forward to the next level of conversation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have our second round of the panel, and like all what we all are complaining about, it will happen. We all say our thing, and the dialogue will needs to be done outside in the corridor. And we really hope also to, after this meeting, try to combine all what has been said in some kind of ask or the report. But anyway, now we are moving to the second part of the panel. Gina, you are in the back. Yeah, yes. Gina, you go here. Just quickly. Okay. And then we have proxy for John.
We were all going to be in the same panel, but there weren't enough chairs. So we're splitting into two.
And Tom.
Patience with us as we...
Sorry, that's okay. You are proxy.
Okay.
Sorry. I gave that one.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being here in the second part of our session, and thank you for all of the panelists who are joining me here on stage. I think we're going to do something a little different than the first panel did. I would like everyone to just quickly introduce themselves. Neha, would you start?
Hello, check. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Neha Kumar, and I'm an associate professor at Georgia Tech in the School of Interactive Computing. I'm also president of the Special Interest Group on Computer-Human Interaction. And so this summit is is really a coming together of many different worlds for me. I grew up in Delhi, so it's been about coming home, but also a lot of the conversations we've been having are conversations that are really very, very active right now in the discipline of human-computer interaction, HCI, some of you might know it. And it's great to see how central human centricity is to what we've been discussing. And third, something that's been much closer to my own area of study is really looking at HCI and technology use in the context of social impact. And this has been named in many different ways over the years: social good, social impact, societal impact, public interest, whatever you want to call it. But really, it's an area that we've been studying for many, many years before AI was on the scene. And so I would say that we're looking at multidisciplinarity in this panel, and to me, there's a lot of learning that could be happening from many of these disciplines that have been actively looking at some of these. Agreed that the platform that we're looking at is different, is unprecedented in many ways, and at the same time, there's a lot that we have to learn from as well. So I'll stop there. And
Thank you, Neha. Merv?
Thank you, Gina. Marve Hickok. I'm the President and Policy Director for Center for AI and Digital Policy. We are an independent think tank working globally at the intersection of AI policy and human rights, democratic values, and rule of law. So I would like to take a more expansive view of safety and governance at large, but more to come on that.
Thank you. Rasmus?
I think this works now. Yes, my name is Rasmus Andersen. I work with the Tony Blair Institute of Government, where I advise leaders around the world at the prime ministerial or presidential level, but also at the line minister level on navigating AI. What does it mean for them? How they both deliver results to citizens with AI and also avoid harm to their citizens. And so the question of safety comes up a lot, but it's also usually not the top of leaders' minds, and it's really about, for me, helping them often realize the long-term best interest, informed, self-interest of what is the world likely to look like in 2030, in 2035? How can you best make sure that your country and your constituents and citizens are in the best possible position as the world will change very rapidly?
Thank you. Tom?
Is this one working? Great. I am not James. I am Tom Romanoff. I am the Director of Policy for ACM, where I help manage the policy committees, which Gina and Virginia chair our global committee. We also have regional committees across the world, including the United States, Europe, Asia, India, Africa, and the APEC regions. So what my job at ACM is to help the computer science folks translate their recommendations on harms or issues that they see in the technology to policymakers and engage those policymakers on behalf of ACM. So before that, I was at a think tank in Washington, D.C. So I worked with Congress and have been working in tech policy for many years now.
Okay. So in the interest of time, I'm going to get right to a very provocative question, which is we've been seeing, wellness for all, happiness for all, in the presence of a fairly extractive and exploitive potential. Does history tell us that it's going to be great for everyone, just works out? Or there have to be some musts, not just good intentions or shoulds? If we are not seeing things like recovery, retribution, remuneration, we don't see people going to jail when they do bad things with AI, are we serious about AI safety?
I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
So no, history does not show us that it's going to be cool. History is definitely not a good indicator, which means that we need to fight harder this time around and try to get that level up, right? So history is always a story of the powerful, of the winner, like who gets to decide the narrative. And we're seeing that again today, the narratives around what is safety what should be the evaluations, where should the money go, where should, like whether we should regulate or not, whether it should be should or must, is always the narrative of the powerful. And when Dame and the Hall mentioned, the representation was very much the same kind of people throughout the conversations, higher level conversations yesterday. So I think the first and foremost, the narrative needs to change in safety as well. So far it has been, I think it's been an evaluation, but so far the most important safety issues has been around nuclear, cybersecurity, chemical weapons, etc. Yes, they might be, or existential risk, which is another story. Yes, maybe we talk about those, we should talk about those, but there are real consequences right now on people's rights, freedoms, ability to live with their dignity, and people's rights to participate in democratic processes. All of these are undermined, and as an organization where those three issues are like in our mission, we are seeing this more and more under pressure. So this is the time to get your voices up as citizens, as consumers, as professionals in your own right, and try to change the narrative, because otherwise it's going to just be a repeat of history.
Well said. Neha?
Yeah, I think coming back to something that Wendy said, right, about being all-inclusive at the same time as having no women around in decision-making places. I think that is something we should really be thinking about. I mean, do we have a history of being inclusive? What inclusivity have we been practicing in our innermost circles? It's easy enough to say that the poorest of the poor should have access to this AI, but how are we doing on being all-inclusive? So I think there are lessons from disciplines such as feminist and women's studies that we can learn from to really ask the who questions. Who is making decisions? Who is being benefited? Who is part of the design process? That's one. Second, I would say in learning from design, which is one of the disciplinary disciplines that I've trained in, thinking about zooming out is great, and that's where we have value. So we talk about inclusivity, we talk about diversity, we talk about all these great sounding words, but then when we zoom in, what are we actually doing? And I think that a lot of the dialogue that we've been having is in this disembodied state where we talk about infrastructure and we talk about data and we talk about interoperability and we talk about processes, but who is benefiting? The panelists before me also talked about aging, so people who are more vulnerable. Where are they in the conversation? And lastly, with regards to development studies, thinking about what are the benefits of development really? Like, we want development and impact, and that's what we're talking about here for 5 days at the summit. But we know from historical perspectives that development hasn't worked out so well for so many people and so many countries across the globe. And how are we making sure that we don't repeat those same mistakes? And I think these have to be very much part of the conversation, so that it's safety of the human, of the body, of our values, of just our communities, our structures, social structures that are so critical to us.
Thank you. Rasmus?
Yeah, I think we're not seeing people go to jail. I'm not sure we have seen something just as of yet that really where that's the case. There are lawsuits ongoing on suicides among young people, etc. But I do think that we will see a moment pretty soon where something does go pretty wrong, and then we're going to have a decision on what we do with that. Some people, this is a very dark parallel, some people said we needed to have World War II to have the UN and other systems that were put in place to avoid that happening again. And I think it's a matter of time when we get something and we will have to make those decisions. And currently, I think I'm not super confident that we will interpret those events correctly, that we will, have a realistic view of what might change and how we might prevent them from happening again. And it could be people leveraging them, organized crime. It could be I mean we've had very recently these where we've successfully had Elon Musk and Grok stop allowing people to create non-consensual deep fakes of nudes, which had happened in the millions. So we have sort of small that's not small, but we'll have much bigger things than that. And I do think still when that happens, we will have to think about both pros and cons and costs and benefits. When we regulate things, we don't regulate risks down to zero. When you get into a car, there's a risk something will happen, but you still need to get places. And I think it's with safety, we do have to take some of the same lessons as Maria mentioned from nuclear, from flights. It used to be that when you got on an airplane, something like 200 or 1,000 more of them crashed than today, and we've reduced that level of risk very far down. And I do think that the political level, while we need technical inputs, the only force in the world that can really take all those considerations together and think about the partial perspectives that technical people have, that civil society has, that industry has, really the only place it comes together imperfectly is at government. And that's why it's so important that we are here, however imperfect these summits are.
Okay. Tom?
All right, something a little different. I would like everybody in the room to raise their hand if you think safety is an important aspect of the AI deployment. Great. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Now, take your hand down if you think that safety should be enforced on the output of AI outcomes. Oh, wow. Okay. Take your hand down if you think that laws should apply to the outputs of AI rather than AI itself. Okay. All right, you can go ahead and put your hands down. Right. It wasn't as dramatic as I thought it would be. But so I'm going to talk a little bit about the 49-51% rule. And across all political spectrums, no matter where you are in the world, there's this idea that you only need 51% of the political willpower to start passing regulations, and 49% won't get it done. It applies in the business world as well. You have 51% of the board control or equity in a company, basically control that company, right? Lobbyists have an extreme incentive to not push anybody past that 51 or 49% in order to have inaction in the political space, right? So across all of our governments in here, there's, private, I don't want to say private sector because they're important, but there are private entities that would like to have inaction in the regulatory space. And it's not until 51% of those politicians or that political regulation gets to that threshold that you'll start seeing some changes. And so you see examples of that with the example that my colleague here mentioned with, deep fakes or nudification applications causing worldwide outrage. And you started seeing governments across the spectrum say, that's something that at least 51% of our population does not want. And so they start moving towards regulating or enforcing current laws to punish that kind of action. And so I say all this because there's also this conversation around moderates, right? We don't know where the technology is going. We have computer scientists, we have civil society screaming about the need for action, for security within the stack, right? And the rest of the world are moderates. They're still engaging this AI. They're still figuring out what it can be doing. And it's not until some kind of action happens, some kind of consequence, some kind of issue happens that people wake up to the folks who've been screaming about it for years. And so what I encourage everybody in here is not be a moderate. Pick a side and start encouraging your politicians, your family, your community. Educate them, figure out ways to communicate the very heady technical aspects of security within the AI stack to the common person, to the person who can understand it. And that's when you're going to start seeing the regulations start to roll out.
I think that's a great place to end because I think we are not going to get happiness for all and wellness for all unless we insist. We're all going to have to insist. It's not going to come automatically. So asking each of us to ask ourselves a question, what are we going to do to insist? I think is a really a good place to end. I think we started this session a little late, but I've been told that they would really like us to try to end on time. So I think I will leave it there, but we would love to engage you in conversation out in the hall after this session is over. Thank you to all the panelists in the first session, and also all of us up here. Thank you so much.
Thank you all, indeed. I think that there is actually time, if I look there, to have one question, or two questions maybe? One, now there are too many questions. I have to vote. Okay, sir there and the lady there.
Yeah. So I would like to.
A very short question.
Yeah.
One
I would like it's not a question. It's a suggestion to the gentleman who has beard on that side. Name I missed. Yeah, Jitu. That go get some life at Sarvam setup. Your agenda of Hindi and other language is going to die very soon. So you have to get some life of that Hindi imposition and all those things. Nobody will impose down the line few months. Yeah, we will speak each other's language very easily.
We go for other questions. Okay, lady there. 30 second question.
Sure.
And a question, not a comment.
Sure. Thank you so much for the provocative discussion. This is what I was hoping to get at the India Impact Summit. My question is about how can regulatory artifacts like dataset cards, model cards, system cards, rigorous evaluations, user feedback now be extended to cover multiple languages, multiple contexts, and multiple cultures?
I think a lot of hard work.
Happy to take that. So those were, for those of you who don't know, model cards, data cards, system cards are documentation that provide us with provenance of where the data came from, how it was processed, how the model was trained, and what kind of evaluations were taken or processed on it, and what kind of decisions were taken. So it shows both the provenance, evaluations, the limitations, and the capabilities. For those of us in civil society, researchers, as well as consumers, it provides us with that documentation of what kind of risks we are adopting if we take these data or models or systems, right? So it's critical infrastructure, critical transparency instruments. But they are mostly in English, and especially when we're talking about generative AI system language models, we are running into this issue of multilingual capacity limitations, especially on the safety. So not only these documentations need to be dynamic, because the systems are dynamic, but it needs to serve the evaluations, the limitations need to be adaptive and reflective of the different languages where the systems are being used as well. So it might perform really good in English, but we know that the systems are not safe or secure or perform that well in many different languages that are not English or as resource intensive as English. So great question. They need to be dynamic and they need to reflect the languages.
And I will also say, just very briefly following up on this, is that these are things that governments can require for model providers to release models in your jurisdiction. Yeah. They so far are not.
Thank you
But
very
we
much.
could insist.
Yes, yeah, we need to insist.
They are providing, like California started this. I just want to
Sure, I think we can continue the discussion, and I hope we'll do. This is today just the start. I also hope that we will be able, together with all the panelists, to create some kind of a report setting out the shared priorities, the practical issues, the asks, the methodologies, the measures, and we will hopefully facilitate and continue this discussion. I would ask all the panelists of the first and of the second round to stay here for a memento from the organization, and I would like to thank you all for being here, and all the panelists again, of course. Thank you so much.